Hi friends, welcome to today's video. This is going to be a full review on the science curriculum that we used this year. We completed Sparks and Stars and Wind and Waves from the Good and the Beautiful. I did this with my first grader and preschooler. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how the lessons are set up, how many times a week we did them, how long they took us, did we do all the extra science experiments, did we do any science experiments at all, was it enough, all those questions, I'm going to answer them. So let's start with the basics. This is part of the Little Hearts and Hands series that the Good and the Beautiful created specifically for your littles. If you don't have older kids and you don't want to be doing those other science units that they have, this is a great option for you. Yes, you can do those other ones if you have older kids. These ones are short and sweet. They introduce your kids to a bunch of topics. So like I said, we did Sparks and Stars. We did that the first half of the year. We completed that around Halloween. And then we did a couple lessons in Wind and Waves, took a break for December and January, and came back in February and finished out the rest of the year with Wind and Waves. They also have two others currently. There's also a fifth one that is supposed to come out this summer of 2025. So they also have Fields and Flowers and Bones and Stones. I have no idea what that fifth one is going to be. It's been on their website for a while. So there is going to be 5 courses total. These courses are geared for preschool through 2nd grade, and I think that does hit pretty well. This is just a nice, simple introduction to a bunch of different topics. I think if your kids have had no exposure to any of these things, this is great. My first grader, even my preschooler, actually did know a little bit about some of these topics, but obviously we went into much more detail, and you could also always add on. You could get books from the library, watch, educational videos on different things, but this by itself, so well done, and it is definitely enough for those littles. So let's break it down. Each of these courses, Sparks and Stars and Wind and Waves, is both 30 lessons. Now, if you want to just do one course a year, you could do that. And actually, if you think about it, if you do 2 preschool years, a kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, that's 5 years for the 5 courses. Now, we obviously doubled up. We did about 2 lessons a week. Sometimes it was just 1, but usually 2 a week. And we were able to get through 2 of the courses this year. And like I said, we did take a huge break, like through December and January, where we didn't do any of these, where we didn't do any science. So you can double up. You can do just 1 a week if your kids are really little, they have a really short attention span, if you have a lot going on, if you have babies, you can cater it. Obviously, you can just do 1 a year if you want. It worked out very nicely for us to do 2. So let's talk about what is actually covered in each course. So we're going to start with Sparks and Stars. This is basically, Sparks and Stars covers physics and astronomy. So I'm going to read through the 30 lessons so you know exactly what each lesson is on. We have states of matter, atoms and molecules, force and motion, gravity, electricity, magnets, space travel, satellites and rockets, the sun. Then each of the planets in our solar system has its own lesson. So Mercury all the way through Neptune, asteroids and meteoroids, comets, stars, the moon, poles and auroras, solar power. This next one's called Did You Hear That? That's like on acoustics. Simple machines, motors and engines, farm machines, airplanes and things that fly, cars and trucks, trains, and then the last one is called Float or Sink. Now, these, in my opinion, do have like a little bit of a flow. It does make sense the order that they go in. You do not have to do them in the order that these are listed. Does it make sense to do them in the order that is listed? Yes. Although nothing is really referenced from anything prior, they do flow into each other in a way that does make sense. You're building on prior knowledge. So I think it does make sense to do them in order, but if you did want to jump around, you definitely could. So Wind and Waves is about meteorology, all about the weather, and also marine biology, marine life, the oceans, all of that. So the first lesson was what is a meteorologist, weather forecasting, temperature, the water cycle, clouds, wind, rain and snow, rainbows, floods, tornadoes and hurricanes, lightning and thunder, light and shadows, reflection and refraction of light, light and color, bodies of water, saltwater and freshwater. Then what is a marine biologist? Sand and seashells, wonderful waves, names of the ocean, zones of the ocean, animals of the open ocean, on the seashore, coral reefs, animals of the coral reefs, animals of the sunlight and twilight zones, animals of the midnight zone, sharks, dolphins, and then the last lesson is called funny fish. So those are the 30 lessons that are in Wind and Waves. Let's get into how the lessons are actually broken up, how they are laid out, and I will answer the experiment question. I actually literally flipped through every single lesson again, and I actually wrote down what we did and didn't do so that I'm telling you like what we actually did, so I can be completely honest with you guys. So first of all, let's start with Sparks and Stars because that is what we did first. We did all the lessons. There are 30 lessons. Of those 30 lessons, 6 of the lessons do not contain a story, either a story that we read or a story that we listen to. These 6 lessons are like a complete activity. You have to do the activity to do the lesson. So for example, let me tell you what I mean. The first lesson actually is one of these lessons. It's on states of matter, and you literally have to do an experiment to complete the lesson. So you're talking about matter, you're talking about solids, liquids, and gases, so you might understand where this is going. So you're going to boil water, it's going to evaporate, you're going to see condensation. It literally walks you through everything that you have to do, questions you ask along the way to your kids. So like right here, you're holding something over boiling water. It says to be careful, I'm just telling you. But you're going to see condensation. You're going to see, like the condensation drops on the surface of a cup. That's what you're holding. And then you literally ask, do you see the little droplets of water? Then it says, move the cup away from the pot and then carefully hand the cup to the child. Okay, as the water cools more, the droplets will gather together, okay, and then they become a liquid again. And then it talks about like water into ice, freezing, all of that. So you kind of have to do the experiment to do the lesson, obviously. There's questions that go along the way, and it's a lot of fun. Those experiment ones don't take a lot of time. The other one, there's 6 of these, like I said, in Sparks and Stars, and actually also 6. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if it's purposely like that, but there are also 6 lessons in Wind and Waves that are also like just an experiment that you have to do. There's no reading. Another one is this one called Float or Sink. You take some foil and you literally make a boat and you talk about buoyancy. You put things in it. Does it sink? How long until it does sink? That's one of them. A couple of them are games. A couple of these 6. 2 of them. I just passed one of them. Oops. Okay. So one of them here, the one on Neptune. There's no reading for Neptune. You read this huge section on the gas giants and the terrestrial planets, and then you do this activity, which is like a trivia activity, a little game. Okay, so I think there's 2 games, and then the other 4 were I don't know, I didn't look at that part, but it's like there's no reading that's done. So you either do a little activity, trivia game, or an experiment, and that's for 6 lessons out of the 30. Of the remaining 24, so 30 lessons, 6 of them were activities or an experiment that you have to do. It's part of the lesson. You can't kind of get around that. Then there are 24 lessons remaining. So we're going to talk about the remaining 24 lessons now and how those are laid out. So the way those work, there is an opening, and it literally says opening. Then you either read a story from here, the science stories. These are absolutely beautiful. They cover whatever topic the lesson is on, okay? And then if you're not reading a story, then you're listening to a story. There's an audio narration. You access it from the app. There are little pawns in the back that you can take out, okay, and fold up and use. We just use random objects. We use the, we have like the extra erasers that you put on a pencil for when it gets low. So we just pop those off, and my kids use those as pawns and they follow along. There's a bell that dings as they're telling the story, so they know to move on to the next one. So the story. After the story or the audio narration, there are discussion questions, usually like anywhere from 3 to 6 in there somewhere. And then there's an optional activity. That's how the lessons are laid out. So with that, okay, let's start. Let's just go in order. The opening activity. These range in what you are actually doing. Some of them, you are looking at 2 pictures. You're kind of, you read this out loud, the parent, and you're comparing some pictures. Sometimes it, again, this one, it wants you to spin a top. This one's talking about Jupiter. Oh, I'm sorry. This one's the spin the top one. So here's another one that they want you to look at pictures, and you're reading stuff to the kids, and they're kind of, like you're guessing which one's which. Here's another one. You're talking about the phases of the moon. So any of these picture ones, we did those. Some of them you have to go and get like pieces of paper, or you have to do almost like a little mini, I don't want to call it an experiment, but like a mini demonstration. I didn't do any of that, okay? If we had to go outside, we didn't do that, okay? I didn't want to go outside after just getting my kids to like sit and be ready to do school and then to get up. No. So we didn't do any of the ones that said go outside and do something, gather some rocks or stand in the sunlight. We didn't do any of those. Let me look through wind and waves. Sometimes it's like a little riddle that they have to solve, or just a little poem in general, just to introduce the topic. If it was a reading or we were looking at pictures, we did it. If I had to gather supplies, then I did not do it. Now, none of it was like super difficult anyway. It was like cut up a piece of paper or rip pieces of paper or get some scissors out and do this, or, get a balloon. If I had to do any of that, I didn't do it, just to be completely honest. So I actually tallied up how many of the opening things that we did, and I did half for each of them. Okay, I did 11 for Sparks and Stars and 12 for Wind and Waves. So like I said, not including the 6 that were experiment only, but of the remaining 24, I did about half of the opening demonstrations. Otherwise, I would either modify whatever it said. Like I remember one of them was specifically like, go and stand out in the sunlight. And do you feel the warmth on your skin? We didn't do any of that. Sometimes I would have my kids like maybe imagine that. And honestly, sometimes I just said, okay, today's topic is coral reefs. Let's get started. And we would just read the story, do the discussion questions, and be done. So it can be that simple. You don't have to do those opening things if you do not want to. Then we would read the story, like I said, or do the audio narration. I will say at the end of each of the stories, there is a page. Hang on. It'll be fun facts about whatever the topic was. And we would read through all of these. They were very fun. This also got my kids thinking. Sometimes they would ask questions, or they would respond to something, or they would be curious about something else. And this is where you could like bring out the iPad and pull up videos, or if they had questions about what something looked like, or, we really did have a little bit of a discussion when we were talking about the fun facts. Sometimes it was just reading the fun facts and they weren't into it, but a lot of the times we did have some good discussion, or they would think of some questions, or they wanted to see something. And so I would pull up, you know, a picture or a video or whatever. I remember the one, like, specifically it was on waves. I did pull up like surfing videos of huge waves, you know, like off the coast of Hawaii or something, of people surfing them. For the dolphins one, I pulled up videos of dolphins doing tricks, and we watched some videos of dolphins, you know, doing different things. So that's how we kind of handle that part. And then the discussion questions, like I said, there's usually like anywhere from 3 to 6, depending on what it is. And it's usually just like making sure they understood whatever was said, whatever was in the story that they heard, to make sure they learned anything, to make sure that they learned things. Like for this one, this is one of the coral ones. On coral reefs, the one question, the first one is, what makes up a coral reef? It actually gives you the answer in case you, the parent, forgot. The next question is, name one difference between hard and soft coral. And then it says, answers will vary, but may include the following points. And then it lists them out. And then the last question is always more of a, like, it gets them to creatively think. Like, this one is, would you want to visit a coral reef, and what would you hope to see there? So it makes them think about what they learned. It also adds a little bit of creativity there with them thinking of different scenarios. Okay, so I've walked you through how the lessons work. Then we get to those optional activities, okay? That's at the end of every lesson. At the end of every lesson, it says it right here under the discussion questions, optional activity. I went through and counted how many we did. Okay, here's how many optional activities we did with Sparks and Stars. 1. Here's how many optional activities we did with Wind and Waves. 3. Okay, I really, honestly, truly believe you do not need to do the activities. Let me repeat that. You do not need to do the activities. Now, minus those 6 experiment-only lessons. Okay, those I think you should do. And you can time them out if you're not feeling it that week. Okay, I need to wait to do that on a week where I have the energy to do so. Okay, but again, those lessons will still only take 10, 15 minutes top. Okay, but the rest of the lessons, 24 other lessons that have the stories, the discussion questions, like I said, we did very few of them, okay? And the ones that we did do, so the Sparks and Stars one that we did was an experiment that, so for Sparks and Stars, the experiment that we did was on Jupiter's red spot, okay? And it was like, we had a bowl of milk, we kind of added some, I think it was food coloring or something, or like dish soap. I can't really remember, but we kind of made like designs in the milk that looked like Jupiter. That's what we did. I don't do a lot of them because I feel like a lot of them are a little more on the creative side. They don't actually demonstrate what's in the lesson sometimes. You know, like the train one. It was like, get different crackers and candies and design your own train. Now, for some of you, that may sound great. That might really be up your kid's alley. Not my kids. They want, if they're going to do an experiment, it has to like show something, you know, demonstrate some sort of concept. They don't want to do an experiment like that, just to design something. Of the Wind and Waves ones that we did, now this one was a little bit more on the design side, but I made an exception. And my son, Mr. 7, is really into space, so I wanted to do one of them. Of the Wind and Waves lessons, like I said, we did 3. 3 of the extra experiments. One of them was on clouds, so we got cotton balls, and you know, they stretched them out or puffed them up depending on what kind they wanted to sort of design on a piece of paper. And we even took it one step further, and they actually like created different things with their cotton balls. Like Mr. 7's was a bunch of TIE fighters and X-Wings, because we are still also very much in a Star Wars phase. So he designed like X-Wings and TIE fighters with cotton balls to look like clouds. Okay, the other experiment that we did was on salt and fresh water. This was just like literally cups of water, lots of salt in one of them. Mr. Seven was brave enough to try to drink that, and he was like, that is disgusting. Also, like putting things in it, what happens to different objects when they're in salt water versus fresh water. And then the last one that we did was the ocean zones optional activity, where we got a jar, lots of food coloring, and it was like layers of different oils, water, rubbing alcohol, and it was supposed to be like the layers of the ocean. We learned about, I don't know, 5 or 6 layers of the ocean. I can't remember, and, it was really dark on the bottom. The sunlight reaches the ones on the top. So it was like you could see through that one a little bit more. So we did that one. Okay. My piece of advice to you is kind of just look ahead 2 or 3 lessons, make sure that you have the supplies you may or may not need. And also, when in doubt, ask your kids. I actually thought my kids wouldn't want to do the cotton ball one with the clouds, and they did, so I'm glad I asked them. They did enjoy doing that. So that is how we did science this year. It was short and sweet. We got introduced to a bunch of different topics. My kids enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It didn't take that long to do. And like I said, you can pare it back as much as you want. I do wholeheartedly believe that just doing the stories and the discussion questions by themselves is enough. You learn a lot just in the stories and doing the discussion questions. You don't have to do all those extra experiments. If you want to, they are there for you. And some kids are going to want to do certain things over others, whatever, or you're in a season where you don't want to be doing all that. You have babies and toddlers and whatever. Then don't do it. But I do think, again, the stories just by themselves with the discussion questions is enough. 100%. I believe that. And as you can see, that's really what we did this year too. I didn't do any of those optional things. I really hope this video was helpful for you. We are going to be doing Fields and Flowers and Bones and Stones. And if possible, I'm going to try to do also that third one as well. See if we can get 3 of them done next year. I don't know if that'll be possible, but we're gonna see. At least 2 of them for sure. So you can look out for that review as well, but I do think we're gonna love it just as much as we love doing science this year. If you are new here, subscribe, give this a video a thumbs up if you liked it, leave me a comment down below, or if I didn't answer your question, you can leave it down below. I'll try my best to answer it for you, and I will see you guys all in this next video real soon.